Hi, I am A.F. Winter, and this is Confusional Arousals. I used to be quite good at predicting the future. Sometime in junior high school, I read a story about John Wilkes Booth, who was going to a carnival or a circus, or although it could have been just meeting a traveling group of grifters. It was a long time ago that I read the story, so it would be prudent of you to be very distrustful of this story, and in fact, most of my stories. Anyway, he got his palm read, and the fortune teller saw that he would one day kill the president. Once again, I am confused about the ending, but I have two possible endings. One of them is definitely wrong, and the other one most likely wrong, but both would make perfectly valid endings. In one version, she tells him, and he swears that nothing could make him do such a terrible thing, and for the rest of his life, he tries to run away from his destiny only to fail. In the other version, the fortune teller doesn't reveal his future and hopes she is wrong. But of course, she isn't. I believe that fortune tellers have some secret code about not telling their clients anything that would upset them. This would explain why we are all going to meet a tall, dark stranger and fall in love. Stupid fortune tellers, stupid code. Where's my metaphorical tall, dark stranger? They're all a bunch of lying liars. Although I did go to get my palm read once, and the woman told me I was really screwed up and to get out of her tent. I don't know how many tents I've been thrown out of in my life. Oh wait, there was another time. I was seeing the daughter of a fortune teller. She read my cards and told me I would meet with sudden death if I continued to see her daughter. Spooky. Anyway, I read the story about John Wilkes Booth, and I became fascinated with fortune telling. I bought a tarot deck, read at least one book, and started practicing on myself. It was frightening how accurate I was. The cards said that I was yearning for something, so I got up and got a snack. I got the Wheel of Fortune card and realized it was time for the Wheel of Fortune. I got the Strength card, and I walked into my kitchen where my mother was trying to open a jar of pickles. Dill. I don't know if that was significant, but it could be at some future date. Anyway, I opened the jar of pickles. It seemed like I was getting pretty good at this divination thing. But when I began using my newfound powers to help others, I really started to come into my own. I have always been a very empathetic person. I felt others' pains, so that made me able to feel the direction that the people wanted to go in. The cards, to some degree, pointed me also in that direction, and so me and my practice client would have a real conversation about those feelings that were troubling them. I don't think I had any real gift except to listen to the person and make educated guesses. After a few years, I became too good at guessing, and I started to scare myself. I became the fortune teller in that story who didn't want to tell the other person the bad news. I haven't picked up my cards in a long time, but I still have a couple of decks stashed away somewhere. But from that time forth, I was hooked on the mystical. I discovered that I was particularly interested in a brand of mysticism called the Kabbalah. According to Kabbalistic traditions, you cannot study the mystical until you are a mature and wise person, usually around the age of 40. I didn't let that stop me. I read up on numerology and discovered that every written note had a secret meaning because each letter had a value. And then you add up the values of the word to understand the hidden message. Sometimes people change their names and their destiny changed. God changed Abraham's name from Avram when he chose him as the father of great nations. Jacob became Israel after he wrestled with the angel. I, being a holy prophet at the age of 13, adopted the secret name Zablink Pinkle. It didn't do anything as far as I could tell, but it made me crave pickles. Dill. Spooky. Next, I explored palmistry, which is the art of interpreting a person's character or predicting their future by examining the lines and other features of the hand, palm, and fingers. Each line on your hand, and usually most of the important information comes from your dominant hand, reveals specific characteristics. The main lines are the lifeline, the heart line, the headline, and the fate line. Let's talk about the lifeline, which curves around the base of the thumb and is believed to indicate the person's general well-being, health, and individual path in life. If there is an island on the line, which basically means that the line splits for a while before coming back together, this means trouble. I have a big old island on my lifeline. But there's no way to know when the trouble begins or ends because your stupid hand is not time-coded. So we can only guess when the crap is about to hit the fan. I think the split in my lifeline happened around 1998, when I found out that my liver was not doing well. This is the main reason why I became a vegan, to help my liver recover. Anyway, within 10 years, my marriage fell apart, I went through bankruptcy, my home had to be put up for a short sale, and I moved away from my kids to find work. After I moved, I often looked at that island on my hand. The island represents a bad time, but it is formed by my lifeline splitting into two paths that meet up again further along. You don't go through the island, but around it, and you go around it by choosing one of the paths. Robert Frost wrote, "Two roads diverged in a wood, and I took the one less traveled by, and that has made all the difference." The thing is, my paths were unclear. There was not one less traveled. But I did make a choice. The beginning of the split was a choice. I had a choice in every one of those life events, and I could have made a different choice. This brings up a very popular philosophical religious debate, free will versus determinism. Free will is that we have a choice in our lives about how we live our lives. The whole theory of being punished or rewarded in the afterlife is based on this. We are rewarded if we make good choices and punished if we do ill. Determinism is that we have no choice because we will always end up where we were supposed to be. Heaven and hell in this scenario does seem like a mean trick to me. If we are destined to end up in one or the other from birth, what's the point of it all? Do I really deserve heaven if I had no choice but to be good? Do I really deserve hell if that was my destiny? Determinism also has a non-religious sect of believers. Secular determinism states that if we know the circumstance leading up to the event and the governing laws of the event, we should be able to predict the outcome. And everything we do has come from a previous event. What I choose to eat for breakfast is pretty much determined by what I bought at the store, which is determined by how much I have in my food budget, which is determined by the job I have, which is determined by my educational level, which is determined by my parents' view on education, which is determined by my parents' experiences in education. We could go on forever. The thing is, everything is preceded by something else until we go back to the Big Bang. Because that was the beginning of this whole mess. So it seems like this is a non-starter to hold me responsible for anything unless I had something to do with the Big Bang, which is highly unlikely. Whew. And just because there was some sort of bang, big or otherwise, 13.8 billion years ago, I'm going to a bad place? Talk about your original sin. Just because most life on the planet breathes oxygen does not mean that we are condemned to eternal something or other. I think determinism is like a cat. If you ever upset a cat, it will remember that slight for the rest of its life and plot its revenge. If your dog has an accident and you yell at it, 5 minutes later the stupid thing is wagging its tail when it sees you. A dog is like free will, and it doesn't care what happened before. He always starts with loving you. Strange thing is that many religions believe in determinism. We have theological determinism, which believes that God has preordained everything, including human actions and destiny, meaning that God controls every aspect of creation and the world. Once again, in this scenario, external reward or punishment would be cruel. Let's dig deeper. There are two types of theological determinism. Strong, where the creator deity dictates all events, and weak, based on divine foreknowledge. So, strong, he is actually doing this stuff to us, and weak, he knows everything, but he's not doing anything. He just doesn't care. I think we have to stop anthropomorphizing God. Whatever characteristics we give him always makes him look like a spoiled child. Now, the majority of rational people believe in a form of determinism. If we know where behavior comes from, the circumstances leading up to the event, and the governing laws of the event, we should be able to predict the outcome. The nature of science stands on this principle. And all we have to do is understand what preceded the phenomenon and the natural laws pertaining to the phenomenon to understand how to control it. That sounds simple. But wait, then chaos theory came along and threw a wrench into the works. So we have to start all over again. Chaos theory explores systems that appear random or chaotic. Free will. Even though deterministic laws govern their underlying dynamics. A key characteristic of chaotic systems is their extreme sensitivity to initial conditions. Teeny differences in the starting point can lead to vastly different outcomes over time. Chaos theory highlights the limits of predictability in complex systems, even when those systems are deterministic in principle. I think I got it. This means that we will never be able to control or understand anything completely because the factors that contribute to an event could be too small to measure or understand. The butterfly effect is a common analogy illustrating chaos. It suggests that a small initial event, like a butterfly flapping its wings in South America, can significantly and unpredictably impact a larger system like weather patterns in the U.S. To sum up, previous events influence all future events, and we will never be able to understand any of this stuff. So why be good if it doesn't matter? And there's no reason to solve the mysteries of the universe because we will never understand anything anyway. Hey, is this the most depressing episode ever? And you thought 53 days was bad. I look at the island in my hand again, and I think, what if free will and determinism coexists? We choose our path, but the destination is the same. This leads me to a whole other thought. If the past is fixed due to circumstances that happened in previous pasts, and the future is set, then the only thing we have that is fluid is the present. Yes, it is influenced by the past, but we could go against what we believe is true or our best choice. We can make bad decisions on purpose. I think half of my major life decisions were choices that I thought were stupid at the time. So, if we only have some measure of control over the present, then that is the only thing that should concern us. That is the only thing that merits our attention. And with every choice we make, we have a different experience, which in turn influences future events. Does that mean we could influence our future by our present choices? Sounds like I'm starting to believe in free will again. Maybe our lives are a mixture of free will and determinism. We are born on Earth, a planet that has a particularly narrow band of factors that produce life and eventually humans. We have a certain genetic structure that makes us who we are. Just because we have 46 chromosomes does not condemn me to be a middle school theater teacher. The end of our ability to choose is our death. And just because we die, that does not make life deterministic. Within that time, between birth and death, we make many choices. Granted, those choices are influenced by what has happened before. William Friedrich Hegel, the great philosopher, once said that the greatest lesson that we learn from history is that we learn nothing from history. If we agree with Hegel, then we wouldn't believe that we are influenced by the past, either societal or personal. But because our brains have a specific structure, wouldn't that make our decisions strictly deterministic? Who knows? Now remember, I dig the whole Carl Jung collective unconscious thing. So besides the structure of our brain and our past experiences, chaos theory, and every other kind of theory, we have input from the spirits from beyond. We still have to make up our own minds and follow through in our decisions. So, I believe that there is a structure to things, and we are influenced by a set of choices made before we were born, but after we make a decision, the events we experience are unique, and our interpretation of the events is also unique. That leads us to other decisions, and each choice leads us to different experiences. Circling back to the future predicting and fortune-telling thing, I think of the witches in Macbeth. Did they actually predict his future of becoming a king, or did they see what he secretly wished for, just like I was able to do when reading the tarot? Hey, maybe the whole mysticism or the afterlife consequences thing is a way that humans have to avoid dwelling on the future. We still think about it, but we know that it is out of our hands. We need to just try our best and leave the outcomes to fate, or determinism, or chaos theory. I don't know. Maybe that's the best I could offer you. Understanding where things came from, live in the moment, and don't worry about the future. We are all going to end up in a bad place because the deity who created this whole mess has a wicked sense of humor. I could see why atheists exist. I am A.F. Winter, and I'm still very confused by all of this. And yes, this has been Confusional Arousals.